Hello students of class 12. Today we'll be learning about Unit 6 Reported Speech Part 1. First, let us learn what is direct speech. When something is being repeated exactly as it was, we may quote his actual words, usually in between a pair of inverted commas. So when we want to talk about a person, what did he said exactly using his words without changing what he said? What do we use? We use inverted commas. Let's look at the example. He said, I am busy now. So, I am busy now is exactly the words that has been used by the person. So, we keep it under inverted commas. Second, we have indirect speech. When we report what a person says without quoting his or her exact words and omit the use of inverted commas, we always answer the reported speech in the past tense. In indirect speech, we use that instead of using inverted commas. So when we want to say a person's words without saying exactly what he said, what do? We throw away the inverted commas and instead of using comma, we use the word that. Let's look at the example. In the first example, it says, he said, I am busy now. So how do we change that to indirect speech? We use, he said that he is busy then. Other things to remember, important points to remember while changing from indirect to direct speech. So first we'll study how do we change to direct speech. The first point, the actual words of the speaker are put within inverted commas. So like we have seen in the direct speech, we keep them under inverted commas. Next point, the first word of the reported speech, that is the actual words of the speaker, begins with a capital letter. So we've seen in the direct speech, when the person said, I am busy now, remember, I starts with capital letter and it should be under inverted commas. The next point, the reported speech is separated by a comma from the reported verb. So remember, in the first example we have said, he said, then there is a comma. So we always have to keep a comma before the reported verb. Next, let us see important points to remember while changing from direct speech to indirect speech. So now we're changing from direct to indirect. What are the points? It says, inverted commas are not used, but the reported speech is generally introduced by the conjunction that. So, as we have seen in the example, he said that he was busy then. So, instead of using comma, we use the word that. Next point, the comma separating the reported verb from the reported speech is removed. Next, the tense of the reporting verb is never changed. So, the tense of the reporting verb, he said, she said, all those words, it will never change because they are verbs. Next point, we have the question mark and the mark of exclamation are not used. So if in the direct speech there's a question mark or exclamation mark, when we change them to indirect, we do not use them. Next and last point, interrogative, imperative and exclamatory sentences are put as statements. So interrogative means question sentence, imperative means command or order, and exclamation means expressing something out of sudden feeling. All these sentences, when we change them to indirect, we put them as statements. Next, we have change of tense from direct to indirect speech. So there are so many tense that have to be changed. Remember, in the indirect speech definition, we say we use it in the past tense. So what are the rules that we have to use while changing from direct to indirect? The first rule, it says, if the reporting verb is in the present or future tense, the tense of the verb in the reported speech is not changed at all. I repeat, if the reporting verb, okay, is in the present tense or future tense, the tense of the verb in the reported speech is not changed at all. Let us look at the example. He says, I am ready. How do we change it into indirect? He says that he is ready. So the tense does not change if it is in present or future tense. Next example. He will say, I am ready. Remember, this is in future tense. How do we change that to indirect? He will say that he is ready. We have next the second rule, which says if the reported verb is in the past tense, the tense of the verb in the reported speech is changed into one of the forms of the past tense. So if the reporting verb is in the past tense, was, and all those things, then what happened? Even the reported speech will be changed into one of the past tense. So let's look. Remember, even in present tense, in past tense, we have simple, simple, continuous, all those things. So first, let us look at simple present. How do we change it? It becomes to simple past. Example, he said, I write a letter. So how do we change that? He said that he wrote a letter. So it will change to simple past. Next, we have present continuous. It will change to past continuous. He said, I am writing a letter. He said that he was writing a letter. So in all these things, what happened? All the reporting verb, that is the direct speech, will change into past tense in the simplest form, that is the reported speech. The third, we have present perfect becomes past perfect. Let's look at the example. He said, I have written a letter. How do we change that? He said that he had written a letter. So remember, when we use perfect, either be it present or past, we always have the word have in the present tense, and in the past tense we have had. Next we have number 4, simple past becomes past perfect, past continuous becomes past perfect continuous, past perfect and past perfect continuous remains unchanged. So all this number 4, number 5 and number 6, I did not write any example. Why? Because it's very easy. It will be easy for you to understand. And next, number 7, we have some words that will be changed into the past tense. For example, will change into would, shall into should or would, can into could, and may into might. Rule number 3. If the reported speech express some universal truth or habitual action, the tense of the verb in the reported speech is not changed into the corresponding past but remains exactly as it is. So for you to understand, if any speech, okay, reported speech, if it talks about the truth, for example, the sun rises from the east, the sun sets in the west, or we have north, south, east, west, all those things are truth or habitual action, some action that we do every time or maybe every Sunday or every day. These things we do not change their tense or nor we change their form. How do we write? Number 1, universal truth. He said 2 and 3 makes 5. Okay, so this is actually universal truth. You cannot change the fact. So how do we write? He said that 2 and 3 makes 5. So we do not change, just that we change. Instead of using comma, inverted commas, instead of that we use the word that. Next, habitual action. He said, I go to temple every Tuesday. How do we change that into indirect? He said that he goes to temple every Tuesday. So go will change to goes and the rest remains the same. One important thing to remember is when the reported verb say takes an indirect object, it is changed into tell in the indirect speech. Okay, so when there is a word called say and it takes an indirect object, okay, so when we say indirect object means it comes at the end of a speech. So what will happen? The word say will change to tell. Okay, let's look at the example. We shall go home, he said to me. So how do we change that into indirect speech? He told me that they would go home. So say will change to tell. So the past tense of tell is told. So that is how we change from direct to indirect speech when we have the word say which takes an indirect object. Rule number 4, it says, in the reported speech, the words expressing nearness of time or place are changed into words showing distance. So if you want to express how near or how far is a place or what time, you have to change that into showing distance. Okay, how do you understand that? Let's look at the example. He said it is raining now. How do we change that into indirect? He said that it was raining then. So remember, now changes to then, which shows distance. Okay, now we have the words that I just clicked from the book. Okay, remember I said in the reported speech, expressing nearness of time or place are changed into words showing distance. So the first example we have done, when it is raining now changes to it is raining then. So what are the other words that we can change? This becomes that, here becomes there, these becomes those, and so forth. Okay, so if you look at all these examples, they are being changed. Okay, the next part it says ago becomes before, come becomes go, today, that day, all those things. So when you want to express about a place or time, remember when we change them to indirect speech, they change. These words also change in their sense. Another note to remember, students, if this, now, here, etc. refer to the same object, time or place that is present to the speaker while speaking, then no change is made in the adjective or adverb in the indirect speech. So, if it refers to the same object or place that is present to the speaker while the speaker is speaking, then what happens in the indirect speech? Nothing, no change is made. Let's look at the example. He said, I will do it now or never. Okay, so how do we change it into indirect speech? He said that, he will change to would, and the rest will remain the same. Do it now or never. Next, he said my book is here. How do we change that? He said that her book was here. Okay, so here also we use all the past tense form. Next, this is the house I like. How do we change that? He said that this was the house he liked. So what happened here? All these words that is reported in the indirect speech, they do not change whatever the speaker has spoken. Rule number 5, this is the last rule. It says the noun and pronoun in vocative case are turned into objects in the indirect speech. So the noun and pronoun, noun means name of a person, pronoun means he, she, they, them. Okay, so in vocative cases, when we say vocative case means when we are talking about a particular noun identifying the person. Okay, so example, the teacher said, Arun, you should try harder. Okay, so here the teacher said Arun. So here Arun is talking nothing but it is a vocative case. So how do we change that into indirect speech? The teacher told Arun that you will change to he. He should try harder. So the noun changes to pronoun. Okay, Arun and then he. Next point we should remember, if the person addressed reposed the speech, the second person is changed to first. Okay, so from direct to indirect speech, what happens? In the direct speech, second person. In the indirect speech, first person. Let's look at the example. He said to me, you are a clever boy. You is second person. How do we change that to indirect? He said to me that I was a clever boy. So I is first person, and then are will change to was in past tense. Another important point, if the pronoun he or she stands for different persons, the name of the person referred to are inserted in bracket after the pronouns. Besides, nouns can be used instead of pronouns whenever possible. Okay, so here's an exceptional case. For example, you are talking about a person. Okay, two persons or three persons, what happened? They are referred to in the indirect speech by keeping their names under the bracket, or you can use their names, whatever is possible. Okay, example, Arun said to Amit, I want your pen. So how do we change that into indirect? Arun told Amit that he, who is he? Arun wanted his pen. So his is Amit's pen. So this is how you write it in indirect speech. You keep the name of the person, that is noun, under brackets, and before them you should keep a pronoun he, his, okay, all those things. And this is the end for this unit 6, and I will be keeping this presentation in PDF format. For those students who do not have books, you can refer to this PDF format. I'll be uploading this PDF format in the school website. You can get it there. And if you have any other questions, if time allows, we will discuss it in the next video. Thank you.